Most people aren't interested in a compassionate, loving, and reciprocal relationship. They're just interested in using somebody else as a dildo or a fleshlight. Men want families, fruitful relationships, and to mitigate early death. Today, we reach the culmination of this invaluable Reddit compilation, delving deep into the profound implications of masturbation and pornography consumption on male fertility, prostate cancer susceptibility, and the holistic landscape of relationship contentment. But before we resume the present discourse, I am delighted to announce I am looking to work with two highly motivated individuals one-on-one. If you're seeking to improve your current status by either dropping an addictive habit, optimizing your endocrine system, such as testosterone, or perhaps even if you have business aspirations on Twitter or social media, I would be delighted to be a part of that system to help you synthesize that outcome. Those of you interested can find the application under the King Warrior Magician link below. Now back to the conclusion of what you came here for. Now, as per the leading title here, men who consistently engage in self-pleasuring rituals will find their road to fatherhood halted and stalled. The following study concludes that the consequence of masturbating 3 days in a row decreases sperm count by up to 20%. This showed a statistically significant difference between the first and third samples. Another statistically significant difference with a p-value less than 0.5 was demonstrated in the semen volume of the first and third and the third and fifth samples respectively. Unironically, I think this is the point that needs the least amount of explaining. Anyone who has tried and failed to be sexually continent for a selected period of time will greatly recognize the difference in their ammunition, let's call it. Now, I do believe this has greater utility for those individuals who are trying to conceive a child. Those of you that may have low sperm counts to begin with evidently will see greater outcomes if they're being more conservative with their ammo. Another classic platitude coming to mind is, a man must be economical with his horniness. Well, indeed, if family is high on his agenda. Now we happen across an increasingly more sinister study and claim also. Men who are sexually active in their 20s and 30s are more likely to develop prostate cancer. Why is this the case? Alone, frequent masturbation activity was a marker for increased risk in the 20s and 30s. Now, this is a commonly classic question in relation to the potential risks one may conceive of if they're going on this journey of sexual abstinence. But first, let's address the nuances in the study here. So the particular methods of this study took 431 prostate cancer cases and 409 controls participated and provided information on their sexual activity. Controls being the controlled individuals in the study. In particular, the frequencies of intercourse and masturbation during the participants' different age, decades between 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s were collected. Those of you wishing to scrutinize the legitimacy of the study, I can see, of course, it would be challenging to ascertain if the information the individuals are giving you are accurate, of course. And the results they happened across was, whereas frequent overall sexual activity in younger life in the 20s increased the disease, it appeared to be protective against the disease when older in the 50s. Alone, frequent masturbation activity was a marker for increased risk in the 20s and 30s, but appeared to be associated with a decreased risk in 50s, while intercourse activity alone was not associated with the disease. They concluded that these findings could imply different mechanisms by which sexual activity is involved in the etiology of prostate cancer at different ages. Alternatively, there is a possibility of reverse causation explaining in the protective effect seen in men in their 50s. An apt conclusion of the study, and I doubt you would disagree. The consequences of prostate cancer are, of course, a multifactorial equation. The top causes of that, I would argue, are not in your sexual activity at all, but in your lifestyle choices, which does come under sexual activity. I mean your nutritional choices. Let me talk about inflammation. Any disease, including cancer, has its roots in inflammation first and foremost. One of the key Promoters of inflammation are the processed foods we eat and tobacco smoking, which causes those free radicals in the human body, destabilizing our cells. There's a fairly easy correlation, a positive correlation to draw with increased cancer risk and the prevalence of things like smoking and processed foods in Western culture. But I did mention this is a multifactorial equation. Additionally, I would argue the presence of things like corn syrups and added sugar, just absolutely all over the Western diet, is of course going to grow anything in its presence, including things like tumors also. However, there is a good solution to this that is completely free if this is something that genuinely concerns you, and it is of course fasting. There is no area of your health and well-being that fasting does not have a positive effect. It controls your insulin levels, it limits intake of highly processed foods, it starves tumors, it creates stem cells, it reduces inflammation, and it recycles dead and damaged tissues in the body, and a lot more. It's one of the most powerful healing mechanisms that we have. Fasting is your inner physician. I suggest you activate it. You know what's also very interesting is that the individuals typically bringing up this claim that SR causes prostate cancer are typically the individuals that eat like shit, smoke all day, and are arguably the biggest wankers you'll ever meet in your life, unironically. Whilst we're in this area, it's really important for me to over-exaggerate. Being on SR for 30 days isn't like waving a magic wand and having everything in your life fixed. Sure, you'll probably see some process, but if you're eating poorly, if you're not training, if you're still smoking weed, if you're not meditating and being creative, like all things, gentlemen, you cannot supplement your way out of a poor lifestyle. It's like buying condiments when you have no food. Like who buys barbecue sauce if you don't have any ribs? Priorities, guys. Now, this final study is going to need your attention. Masturbation negatively affects happiness in relationships. Results from both the 2012 New Family Structure Study and the 2014 Relationships in America survey show that masturbation is negatively associated with relational happiness for men and for women. Now, there may be several reasons for this. It might be first and foremost that your partner doesn't match your sexual energy or your sexual needs in that respect, or it might be that you're bringing a sexual addiction into the relationship under the guise of, oh, I have a high sex drive. I've seen that many a times. One of the more interesting points revolves around the premise of a book called Cupid's Poisoned Arrow by Marina Robertson that I have quoted endless times. Now, she challenges the way most Western culture approaches the notion of sex and relationships, which typically resembles that of a junkie waiting for his next hit of dope. I guess I'm going to have to expound upon that. If you're watching this video and you live in Western culture, you probably would have learned how to have sex through watching pornography, which is about as far removed from sex as anything can be. Here's the problem that most people do not understand. Sex serves a dual purpose. Firstly, it facilitates pair bonding, which is intricately linked to the release of the neurochemical oxytocin. And secondly, it fulfills the procreative imperative driven by the neurotransmitter dopamine. Marina Robinson's thesis posits that the frequent pursuit of orgasmic experiences engenders adverse side effect. Now, these adverse outcomes might be heightened sexual cravings, diminished relationship satisfaction, and emotional disconnection. It's a fascinating book that delves into the details about the addictive qualities that are inherent in orgasms and their potential to disrupt the potential pair bonding processes between man and woman. Look, you've heard me say it very, very crudely in the past before. Most people aren't interested in a compassionate, loving, and reciprocal relationship. They're just interested in using somebody else as a dildo or a fleshlight. Marina Robertson posits that something like Carezza is a very healthy alternative to the, let's say, conventional way people are having sex now in the West. And this is a kind of caressing intimacy that prolongs the oxytocin releasing process and allows for better pair bonding outcomes, cultivating a deeper sense of emotional connection, intimacy, and harmony between the two parties. You may have heard of similar practices like white tundra. And there you have it, my brothers. That was the part 3, or the final part in this particular Reddit post, which I feel was very, very conducive to our holistic, healthy sexual well-being. Gentlemen, these are not theories, these are facts. Speak soon.